picture this moment. You're on your knees, tears streaming down your face, begging heaven for healing. Your voice cracks as you whisper the same desperate words you've prayed 1,000 times before. But here's what will shatter everything you thought you knew about prayer. What if the very words leaving your lips are sealing your fate? What if your most sincere, heart-wrenching prayer is actually pushing healing further away from you? Every single day, millions of believers around the world cry out for physical healing. Cancer patients, chronic pain sufferers, parents holding dying children, all believing that faith plus prayer equals miraculous recovery. But here's the devastating truth that no one wants to face. Most of them will die still waiting for their miracle. So the question that haunts every honest believer is this: are you praying for healing, or are you unknowingly praying for something else entirely? If you're ready to discover truths that will transform your understanding of divine healing forever, hit that subscribe button now, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything. You've heard it preached from every pulpit, haven't you? If you just have enough faith, God will heal you. This toxic lie has destroyed more lives than any disease ever could. It turns every sick believer into a spiritual failure, every death into evidence of insufficient faith. But here's the twist that will blow your mind. Some of the most faithful people in history suffered tremendously, while those who mock God enjoy perfect health. Think about this paradox that religious leaders desperately try to explain away. Why do children in cancer wards, pure and innocent, waste away despite thousands praying for them? Why do elderly saints who've served God their entire lives spend their final years in agony? Meanwhile, those who curse heaven's name live to 100 in perfect health. The faith healing formula doesn't just fail, it's backwards. The uncomfortable truth is that God's healing doesn't operate on a spiritual vending machine principle. You can't insert enough faith coins and expect a healing to drop out. This realization isn't a crisis of faith. It's the beginning of understanding how divine healing actually works. And once you see it, you'll never look at prayer the same way again. When God appears silent to your cries for healing, there are 3 hidden dynamics at play that most believers never discover. First, you're often asking for the wrong thing entirely. When you beg for physical healing, you might be unknowingly requesting that God interrupt a process that's designed to birth something far greater in you. Your pain isn't random, it's purposeful, even when you can't see the purpose. Second, God's silence isn't absence, it's presence in a form you don't recognize. Sometimes the deepest healing happens not through miraculous intervention, but through divine companionship in the darkness. The very experience of feeling abandoned by heaven can become the doorway to an intimacy with the divine that healthy people never experience. Your unanswered prayer might be the answer to a prayer you didn't know you were praying. Third, and this will shake you to your core, sometimes physical healing would actually harm your soul's development. What if your illness is the exact pressure needed to transform you into who you're truly meant to become? What if removing that pressure would leave you spiritually stunted forever? This isn't cruel, it's cosmic love operating on a level your mind can't grasp but your spirit recognizes. The biblical examples the church doesn't like to discuss prove this pattern. Paul's thorn in the flesh, never removed despite his pleading. Job's suffering, permitted, not prevented. Even Christ himself sweating blood in Gethsemane, asking for the cup to pass, yet drinking it fully. These weren't failures of prayer. They were prayers being answered in ways that transcended the request. Here's where everything you thought you knew about divine healing gets turned upside down. What if God's no to your prayer for physical healing is actually a resounding yes to something infinitely more valuable? What if heaven's apparent rejection is really divine selection for a deeper kind of healing? Consider this radical possibility. Every unanswered prayer for physical healing is actually an answered prayer for spiritual healing. The pain that won't leave isn't evidence of God's abandonment. It's proof of God's investment in your transformation. You're not being punished, you're being prepared, not ignored, but included in a mystery that healthy people will never understand. I've witnessed something extraordinary in those who've walked through the fire of prolonged illness without the miracle they sought. They develop a depth of wisdom, a quality of love, a strength of spirit that can only be forged in the furnace of apparent divine silence. Their prayers weren't denied. They were answered on a frequency they couldn't initially hear. The most profound healing often happens not to your body, but through your body. Your physical limitation becomes the pathway to spiritual liberation. Your weakness becomes the conduit for divine strength. Your mortality becomes the gateway to touching the eternal. This isn't consolation. It's revelation. Now I'm going to share with you the hidden formula for prayer that actually moves mountains. And it's nothing like what 99% of believers practice. The secret isn't in asking for what you want. It's in surrendering what you think you need. The prayer that heals isn't "God, make me well," but "God, make me whole." True healing prayer has three elements that most people miss entirely. First, you must pray for alignment, not alteration. Instead of demanding that God change your circumstances, you ask to be aligned with divine purpose within those circumstances. This shifts you from fighting your situation to flowing with divine current. Second, you must embrace the mystery rather than demand explanation. The prayer becomes, "God, I don't understand this, but I trust you're weaving something beautiful from this pain." This isn't passive resignation. It's active participation in divine artistry. You become a co-creator of your own healing story. Third, and this is crucial, you must pray for the healing of everyone touched by your situation, not just yourself. When you pray for your doctor's wisdom, your family's peace, even for others suffering similarly, you plug into the cosmic network of divine energy. Your individual prayer becomes part of a larger healing symphony. The moment you shift from demanding healing to receiving wholeness, everything changes. Your body might not change immediately, but your relationship with your body transforms completely. You discover that you are not your illness. You are the eternal spirit having a temporary human experience, and that spirit is already perfectly whole. Here's the revelation that will shatter every assumption you've carried about healing and suffering. What if your illness isn't happening to you? What if it's happening through you? What if you haven't been chosen for suffering, but chosen for a sacred assignment that requires this exact experience? Consider this staggering possibility. Your unanswered prayer might be the answer to someone else's prayer. Your endurance through pain might be the example that saves another's faith. Your refusal to give up in the face of divine silence might be the testimony that changes generations. You're not the victim of your circumstances. You're the vessel through which divine love demonstrates its unshakable nature. This is the ultimate plot twist in your healing story. You were never meant to be healed from your situation. You were meant to be healed into your destiny. Your pain wasn't the problem to be solved. It was the path to be walked. Your prayer wasn't unanswered. It was answered before you even prayed it, in ways so profound that your finite mind couldn't conceive them. And here's the final mystery I'll leave you with. In the very moment you stop needing healing, healing finds you. Not necessarily physical restoration, but something far more precious. The recognition that you were never broken to begin with. You are exactly where you need to be, experiencing exactly what your soul came here to experience. The question isn't why God doesn't answer your prayers for healing. The question is, are you ready to receive the healing God has already given you?